Welcome to Kitchen Sink Dharma. Today I want to talk about a word that you'll often come across in insight meditation circles and Buddhist circles. The word is mettā. It's an old Pali word. And it's often translated as loving kindness, but mettā actually literally translates as friendliness. And this is something a lot of people practice. You might already practice mettā. In this tradition we talk about mettā bhavana, which is cultivating mettā. And I just want to share some reflections on what it is that we're cultivating and why we're cultivating it. Because when I first came across mettā in the particular tradition where I did my first retreat, it was taught as a bit of an add-on, a bit of an extra, a kind of optional part of the practice that we use when we're doing the real practice, which is insight meditation, kind of a sideshow. And actually that doesn't fit in at all with what I've been taught since then. And it doesn't actually really fit in with the early Buddhist teachings either, which is that practicing kindness and friendliness is way, way more important than that. It's absolutely central to the path. So what I'm about to say might sound a bit oversimplified, a bit binary, but I think it's largely true, which is that in every moment that arises, whether that moment is pleasant or unpleasant, we always lean either one of two ways. So we either lean towards reactivity, or we can lean towards mindfulness and kindness, friendliness. So one way is the way of an unconscious habit. It's the direction of craving and desire, anger, irritation, confusion, delusion. In other words, it's the habit of wanting this moment to be different to what it is. And the other way is leaning towards mettā. And so mettā here means embracing things as they are, including ourselves. And the whole ground of mettā is just respecting things as they are, respect for what is. And we're taught that the main causes of suffering and discontent are craving and aversion and delusion. And mettā is the opposite of these. It's non-aversion. In fact, it's a remedy for those things. It's a universal antidote for suffering. And it really allows us to be on good terms with every single aspect of our lives. And it can be a really very helpful practice when the world is as challenging as it is right now. So at the moment you might be doing fine, or you might feel completely desperate for things to be different, or it might be something in between. And either way, life in all its messy imperfection might be challenging you at least sometimes. When you think about the people that you encounter in your life, what comes up? Is there a pulling back or a reaching out? Is there a sense of warmth or distance? And do you feel threatened? Do you feel put upon? And of course it might be different for different people, and it often changes throughout the day. But this is about how you're actually responding to the constant changing experience as it arises. And there might be moments of great ease and spaciousness, and there might be times when it all feels like it's too much. But every single moment we lean one way or the other. We lean towards reactivity, or we lean towards friendliness and mindfulness. So why would we practice friendliness? Why would we practice this kind of openness? So one reason is that craving and aversion and delusion actually hurt. They're painful. Because it's the pain of separation from the world. And reactivity hurts us, and it hurts other people. And greed, hatred, annoyance, they actually agitate us. They don't feel very good. So this isn't a moral point. I'm not actually preaching about this. They just don't feel good. And you'll notice this, particularly if you've been meditating or if you've been mindful of your experience. You probably noticed this already. It's not a pleasant feeling to be at odds with the world. And there was an 8th century Buddhist monk, and he was a poet and he was a scholar called Shantideva. And he said something about how although we wish to be free from suffering, we run straight towards the causes of suffering, like it's our long-lost friend. And when we actually take the time to really engage with our experience and look at how the mind works, we can start to become quite disenchanted with that. There's a disenchantment that arises from this repetitive voice inside us of grasping what we want, pushing away what we don't want. So it's like Dylan Thomas once said, someone's boring me and I think it's me. We can get tired of all this. We can get bored of all this reactivity. And that's when it's an opening. That's when it's an opportunity for us to do things differently. There's a quote from the Dalai Lama. He said, "An affectionate disposition not only makes the mind more peaceful and calm, but it affects our body in a positive way too. On the other hand, hatred, jealousy and fear upset our peace of mind, they make us agitated and affect our body adversely. Even our body needs peace of mind and is not suited to agitation. This shows that an appreciation for peace of mind is in our blood." And I think that's right. I think that's why we bring in the cultivation of mettā. Because mettā is the capacity of the heart that can actually be accessed even in the middle of anything, in the middle of the most difficult situations. And it contains qualities of courage and fearlessness. What we're cultivating is an unshakable heart and mind that we can absolutely rely on no matter what's happening. Because when we're little, when we're children, we're taught very early on that our happiness depends on how other people around us treat us and how they see us. And as small children, we're surrounded by people that are bigger than us, and there might be an element of fear. Maybe evolutionary reasons why we have to concern ourselves with whether we're accepted and what people think of us. And then we start to learn to be very sensitive to other people's moods, and we learn to worry about what they might say or do. So our whole center of gravity gets moved outside the body. And actually what the Buddha taught was very different. It was a different way of looking at things. So what we're actually learning to develop is a center of gravity inside ourselves. And it gives us a stronger base from which we can relate to people. We can relate to them with kindness and compassion and genuine friendliness instead of relating to them in a way that's based on worrying about what they think of us. You've got a safe place to operate from right here in the body. And even though by nature we're vulnerable and life's full of uncertainty, once we understand that everybody is vulnerable, everybody's trying to find their way, it starts to open up a connection. Part of our delusion and our confusion is that we see ourselves as completely separate and fundamentally different from other people. And of course we are different in some ways, but we've actually got much more in common. And that reactivity I was talking about, the reactions to things that we encounter, it's all shaped by conditioning. It's shaped by very old habits that go back years and years, generations and generations. And we can't just decide that we're going to change that. We can't just snap our fingers and say, right, I'm going to change how I respond to people. It'd be great if we could. If we could just decide from now on we're always going to be mindful and respond to our experience and the beings that we encounter. Just kindly with no anger, no aversion. Just kindness. But of course it's not that easy. We can't just sweep away old habits and old conditioning. But we can start to cultivate mettā. In other words, we can begin to retrain ourselves to lean towards kindness and friendliness. And it's not just friendliness towards other people, but friendliness towards ourselves as well. And I want to be clear, it's not a short-term fix, it isn't a quick fix. We can be very short-term in our thinking. I think in our culture, perhaps with our use of technology, we live in this very high-speed world. And we want instant gratification, we want an instant change. And if we don't get that, it can really lead us to feelings of agitation and resentment. But actually our ancestors could think across whole generations. So they could work on a cathedral that they'd never see completed in their own lifetime. And they could get meaning and purpose just from building something that maybe their grandchildren would see or their great-grandchildren. So as you cultivate this sense of connection with others, and you start to learn to respond rather than react, remember this has an impact across many generations. You could be like one of the stonemasons chiseling a stone portal, trusting in the cathedral, without actually needing it to take shape straight away. And so we practice mettā. There's lots of ways that we do this. And I was taught to use phrases So you hold someone in your awareness and you silently repeat to yourself something like, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy and well, may you live with ease. And you can progress, you can start with yourself and then you go to someone who's maybe a benefactor, someone who's a friend, and then maybe someone who's more neutral, and maybe even somebody that's quite challenging for you, somebody even that you think of as an enemy. Still with these phrases, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy and well, may you live with ease. You might already be familiar with this practice or a variation of it. And I still use it, but I use it more slowly now than I used to. I don't just rattle through the phrases, I use it more as an insight practice. And just drop in the phrases very quietly, very slowly, and just sense into the body, sense into the heart, see what they feel like. It's just like dropping a coin into a well. And it's a very powerful practice. It can take a while before it shifts anything, and sometimes we need to persevere with it. It's worth persevering with it, even if it starts off feeling a bit false, a bit contrived. Even if it takes a little while to get the heart moving. And if you try it and you find the phrases aren't really generating any sense of warmth, any sense of benevolence, you can always experiment, you can always get playful. You can always create your own particular metta practice. I think it's good to start in the body and sense into your own heart and feel the heartbeat and the movement of the breath. And then just ask yourself, what does friendliness and trust and affection, warmth towards yourself feel like? And then what does it feel like to expand it outwards to other people? And recognize that other people are just like you. And when the pain and the joy that they experience are just like us. There are other practices that you can do. Some are taught as being preliminary to metta practice. And if you've ever worked with forgiveness practice or gratitude practice or the practice of generosity, they're very powerful in building that foundation for metta, building up the tenderness, the sense of connection. I find it helpful to think of it all in terms of small steps, just a little step at a time, actions that connect our hearts to other people's hearts, and tuning into our welfare and also other people's welfare. And then widening that circle of concern, widening it and deepening it, and chipping and carving away at the granite that's going to be a cathedral one day. And so the last thing I want to say, and I want to remind you that this is not a new skill. We're not talking about learning a new skill, we're talking about developing something that's already there, that we already do. It's your very nature. It's who we are. And we forget that sometimes, but it's who we are. So again, thank you for listening. And I hope you can join us again for another episode of Kitchen Sink Dharma.